You can't beat a good bit of trivia, and with the sheer amount of handcrafted worlds, over-the-top characters, and the inner workings of a billion-dollar industry all bouncing off one another every goddamn day, gaming has some mighty fine stories to tell. Accidental game mechanics that ended up changing the face of the industry itself, multi-million voxel counts making up character models, glitches that created world-famous franchises, and a ton more. Every self-identifying gamer has a personal treasure trove of awesome facts that we stumble upon one way or another, so why not share them all together? Also, if you want to gamify this list and play along for fun, give yourself a score of 0 right now and award a point every time you already know any of the following facts. Then you can let us know down in the comments how you got on. I'm Scott from WhatCulture.com, and these are 11 seriously cool gaming trivia facts you need to know. Number 11, Troy Baker is the only actor to play Batman and Joker. Hats off to the chameleonic talents of Troy Baker, who after Lego Batman and Telltale's take on the character, is the first actor in history to play both Batman and Joker across any medium. Baker previously took over as Joker on Batman Arkham Origins, and went on to reprise the role for the awesome animated film Batman Assault on Arkham. With Telltale creating a version of the mythos, one that I heartily recommend by the way, he swapped sides to voice Bruce in a pretty Kevin Conroy-esque way, bringing a more lighthearted tone when Wayne has to hang out and put a face on in public. Troy Baker continues to be one of the most hardworking, gifted, and lovable actors in the business. Someone who's also in way more of your favorite games than you probably think. Number 10, the one time where violence was the answer. Before the release of the likes of the original Mortal Kombat, Doom, and Wolfenstein, as a medium, video games were thought of as toys. Simple, aimless, plinky-plonk excursions into escapism, mostly intended for children. However, due to the unabashedly gory and mature content displayed across these three games in particular, outraged parents and politicians alike eventually forced the American government to create the ESRB, a ratings board that could appropriately rate games as entertainment products more akin to film or TV. This was the first step towards thinking of video games as meaningful uses of our time, as artistic expressions of the finest creative minds, and for me, the best damn entertainment on the planet. Without so much blood and guts, it would have never happened, and marks one of the only times in history where violence really was the answer. Number 9. A picture on your smartphone is bigger than The Legend of Zelda and Super Mario Bros. Combined. I've chosen those games as notably popular examples, but think of your favorite titles that appeared on the NES, SNES, or even the Mega Drive. All will apply to this overall fact. These console game file sizes were around half a megabyte at most, which, as any average smartphone takes pictures in HD, up to and surpassing 7 to 8 megabytes depending on resolution, it's safe to assume the likes of Super Mario Bros., The Legend of Zelda, even Sonic the Hedgehog or Altered Beast would have a combined file size lower than any modern-day photograph. Just for reference, Super Mario Bros. Was 30 kilobytes, Zelda was 64 kilobytes, Sonic the Hedgehog was 375 kilobytes, and Altered Beast was 325. Combined, yet again, that is barely 1 megabyte. Also, just to really mess with you, thanks to the exponential increase in image quality over the years, a high-res version of the original Legend of Zelda logo is bigger than the entire game was as it released in 1986. Now that is some progression for a medium. Number 8. Pokemon Go came from an April Fool's joke, and Nintendo weren't remotely involved. Remember that original trailer for Pokemon Go? The one that looked completely different to what we actually got? Yeah, that was an April Fool's joke. The story goes that the Google Maps team collaborated with Nintendo's Pokemon Company in 2014 to create that year's video. It was called Google Maps Pokemon Challenge, the assumption being that Pogo itself would be a Maps plugin and not a fully playable product. Naturally, people assumed the latter, and the video went viral, resulting in the Pokemon Company playing developer Niantic's other geocaching game Ingress and connecting the dots. Niantic CEO John Hank told Rolling Stone that the idea was a perfect fit, and the team got to work on making Pokemon Go for real in collaboration with the Pokemon Company, not Nintendo. This resulted in a huge spike in shares for Nintendo around the launch of Pokemon Go through association of the brand with its parent company. However, investors soon backed out just as quickly when they realized that Nintendo had nothing to do with the success of the game itself. Number 7. Sonic the Hedgehog originally had a human girlfriend. Back when Sega were conceptualizing Sonic, they needed a character that could tackle Mario head-on. Thus, where Mario was charming and fairly mundane, he ended up being called a plumber because of his overalls, Sonic needed to be radical, gnarly, cool, and ultimately, he had to appeal to the core male demographic of gaming in the 90s. This resulted in designer Naoto Oshima giving the blue blur a quote-unquote attractive blonde human girlfriend named Madonna, who would be characterized by constantly chasing and lusting after Sonic whenever he was away. Oshima described the idea of having a woman being utterly dependent on you and at your beck and call as a quote-unquote male fantasy. Yet when Sega's Western divisions got a look at the design, they promptly canned the whole thing, and for good reason. 2006's Sonic the Hedgehog on Xbox 360 actually revived this ludicrous notion, featuring a supremely awkward kissing scene between Sonic and a princess. And we all know how that went down. Number 6. The Crash Bandicoot Trilogy's combined polygon count is less than Uncharted 4's Nathan Drake. Now, I don't know about you, but I absolutely love a good polygon-based trivia fact. So, according to Naughty Dog programmer Andy Gavin, the polygon count for Crash Bandicoot's character model from the first 3 games was around 512 polygons, meaning that you had 512 interlocking shapes all sitting together to form his shape. Now, Crash's colourful outings required a couple thousand polygons to be processed at any one time once you factored in multiple characters and environmental design, but that was back on the PS1. Come across to the PS4 and Nathan Drake's character model in Uncharted 4 is around 90,000 polygons. That's like the entire Crash trilogy, his kart racing spin-off, the first Metal Gear Solid, and a handful of other PS1 games too. Number 5. Grand Theft Auto's entire premise came from a glitch. Before they were scaring parents into shaken messes across the 2000s, Rockstar were hard at work on a game called Race and Chase. It was an arcadey, top-down racer akin to the likes of Mario Machines or Circuit Breakers, as according to the game's design documents, Race and Chase would, and I quote, produce a fun, addictive, and fast multiplayer car racing and crashing game which uses a novel graphics method. However, as Rockstar, then called DMA Design, started playing around with the idea of implementing police units, a bug in the AI resulted in them ramming the players' cars until they'd essentially pulled them over. A light bulb totally went off in the developers' collective heads, and Grand Theft Auto was born. Cop car chasers, wanted levels, and all. Number 4. GoldenEye 007's multiplayer was a last-minute experiment. Picture this. You've built your character models, the environments, the weapons, you've perfected gun combat for the time, and you're sitting twiddling your thumbs in anticipation for release day. Why not, without even telling your bosses that you're doing it, play about with the game's code and almost as if by accident, perfect console-based multiplayer shooting right there and then? Such was the case for Rare's coding department, who in the final 3 months of development implemented and fully coded the game's multiplayer, only showing it to their higher-ups and Nintendo just before the game went to be pressed for retail. Those in charge had no choice but to say, oh god, fine, and thus one of the greatest multiplayer games of all time was born. Number 3. How Final Fantasy originally got its name. One of the most popular gaming facts of all time, but still one that your casual game-playing friend probably doesn't know, Final Fantasy was reportedly given its name due to director Hironobu Sakaguchi wanting to go back to college, rather than finish the game, hence giving it the final title as he wasn't planning on coming back. However, the real story was confirmed after years of being a gaming myth by veteran series composer Nobuo Uematsu, who stated in an interview with Wired, and I quote, "The real reason was that Square was going to go bankrupt and the designers believed that it would be the company's swan song." So, similar but different. Either way, nobody thought the so-called Final Fantasy would do anything other than be a damp firework, only for it to be Square's most successful product by quite some margin, resulting in the blockbuster household name franchise that we now know and love. Number 2. Assassin's Creed started out as another Prince of Persia. It's hard to imagine a time when Assassin's Creed wasn't the go-to franchise for third-person action adventuring, but before AC came along, Ubisoft were busy plugging the hell out of Prince of Persia. Coming after a trilogy of titles and another planned reboot that later ended up as the cel-shaded 2008 flop, Prince of Persia Assassin was this game's original name, and would have featured the titular prince going on far darker adventures. However, designer Patrice Désilets noted that a prince is someone waiting to be a king and not an adventurer, so Ubisoft greenlighted another IP entirely with him as creative director. As we now know, Assassin's Creed took off in an unprecedented fashion, leaving the prince to star in a cel-shaded reboot before his movie tie-in flopped and he was never heard from again. Although between me and you, I would love another Prince of Persia. And number 1, Nintendo's NES single-handedly saved the Western gaming industry. Nintendo may have waxed and waned in quality over the years, experimenting with motion controls and tanking sales with the Wii U, then coming back to a form not seen since the N64 with the Switch, but they actually single-handedly saved the entire gaming industry in the 80s. See, back in 1983, the release of Atari's E.T. was the straw that broke the camel's back after years of terrible quote-unquote games by as many companies who could afford to do so. The lowest bar of quality arriving in increasingly high quantities resulted in a complete crash of the industry, with consumers resigning the medium overall to something worse than dirt. Following 728,000 copies of E.T. being buried in the Nevada desert just to get rid of the remaining stock, gaming was literally dead and buried. 2 years passed, until Nintendo released the NES in America in 1985. And with its simplistic charms and the likes of Mario and Zelda heading up the marketing materials, the public en masse realized that there was something inherently lovable about video games overall. Nintendo even ate the cost on advertising materials and stands for physical retailers, just to get the product in front of people again. They'd only take a cut if something sold, because that was just how confident they were in the value of gaming. If not for that potent mix of risk and pure charm on the software side though, you could have kissed the industry and all its escapist delights goodbye. And that is just a selection of awesome trivia facts that I think are worth sharing. Let me know your own favorites down in the comments below, and please check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. For now, I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll catch you soon.